Hello, good evening. Being inside, we hope we'll have some consolations for you over the next hour or so, just under an hour. It has to be under an hour because one of our guests has got a train to catch and he's a bit worried because there's a bit of strike action going on. So he's not sure if he's going to get home tonight into deepest West Yorkshire. He is, I'll use a new word. I usually use the word veteran for this particular commentator. I think he prefers doyen of commentators now. Bearing in mind John Motson has retired, at least from the BBC, I think he's entitled to doyen. He is John Helm, who returns for, I think, the third time. Good evening, John.
The ancient mariner.
The ancient mariner. And Liz Byrnes on her second visit. Now, Liz, we pigeonholed John. Well, he does a lot of rugby league, but mostly football. But Liz, we can't pigeonhole because I see her a lot in football press boxes, but she goes to a lot of places you and I don't, and that is to pools to cover swimming and diving and you name it, and great interest in the Commonwealth Games. And of course, local competitors had a fantastic Commonwealth Games, and we can give them on this show, probably for the first time, the credit they deserve, can't we, on this show tonight?
Well, definitely they do deserve it, because I think a lot of those athletes wouldn't normally get, you know, as much attention as other athletes get. You know, if they do get attention, it's sort of just once every 2 or 4 years.
It's a passing reference, and then we move on. And I get the feeling that we haven't, on this show anyway, pleading guilty, that we haven't given the credit they deserve. But I mean, you do a lot of swimming, you do a lot of diving. How many sports do you reckon you cover?
I suppose, obviously football, swimming. One event I worked on last year, I did billiard sports.
What? Billiard?
Billiard sports. It was actually the Asian Indoor Games in Turkmenistan. And so I did snooker, billiards.
Oh, we're all right with that. Work over snooker. Not billiards, I'm afraid.
Russian pyramid.
Wow. I've not done that one.
Yeah.
3-cushion carom. Things I'd never heard of, but so I try and turn my hand to different things, really.
Okay, well, John's off to Russia again. How many World Cups is this? Come on, tell me. Honestly, how many is it?
26. No, it'll be my 10th. This will be my 10th, which is not bad. My first was 78 in Argentina. Yeah. I do remember the 1954 World Cup when Helm scored the winner for Germany. I remember seeing that in black and white, yeah. But 78, I nearly went to Germany in 74. I got a phone call from ITV to say, could you make yourself available to come over? One of our commentators has been misbehaving and might get sent home. I was on the bench. Anyway, he behaved himself. So I had to wait until 1978. And I've missed one. I didn't do France in 98.
Is he nameable?
No.
Presumably this is somebody with those of us.
He's still working. He's still working. I can give you a clue there. Yeah.
He's still working.
Let's be honest, Alan. Always when we've been abroad, have maybe had a night out where we've the following morning regretted it. Can I just back up one thing that Liz said? Whenever I've covered things, I've done the Asian Games and the Commonwealth Games, and I ended up doing badminton. And what fantastic sportsmen they are. And I did rowing. I did one of Steve Redgrave's and Andy Holmes' gold medals in Seoul. And I'm always agog at just how good these people are. And I feel for them that they only ever get good publicity every 4 years. Yeah. Oh, we know about the Scottish curlers as well, don't we? Yes. But it is a shame because they deserve far better.
Absolutely, and it's a great spectacle. And netball, particularly, I felt for that our netball team winning gold at the Commonwealth Games, because for a couple of years I commentated on netball, unbelievably, for Sky. And the names, a lot of the names were the same. Jiva Mentor, I recognised her name, and among many others. And that was a fantastic, that really is a growth sport, isn't it? Are you into that?
Well, I mean, I think, it's something I used to play at school, you know, a few years ago.
Did you, John? I didn't.
I've heard about you.
And I think it reminded me a little of the Olympics in Rio when the British women's hockey team won, and that again, it's a sport that we don't normally see on mainstream TV, taking the gold medal and dominating, being on the front pages and the back pages. You know, that's taking that opportunity, and I think it's very healthy, and I think it's to actually have a variety of things as well. is...
How we all got interested in Elise Christie and the speed skating. Poor
Yes.
girl, everybody was devastated for her, weren't they?
And she was getting abused on social media. This is ridiculous, isn't it?
Absolutely crazy. I heard her interviewed the other day, actually, and she was very, very good. But obviously she was devastated. Of course, anybody would be. They've trained for so long. But she's still determined to go and do it the next time around. And that's what I love about these sportsmen and sportswomen. They've got so much tenacity and guts and character, which, I'll be honest with you, Alan, a lot of footballers haven't got. No, they haven't. And do you know what? And this is be interpreted as a sexist comment, maybe. We're going to talk about Sheffield ladies football, I mean, specifically Sheffield United ladies team looking to get into the Women's Super League. But I've seen the other team in Sheffield who are in the Women's Super League, Tier 2 of it, Sheffield FC ladies, a couple of times. And do you know what? They're hard matches. There's tackles flying in and players take the knocks and bounce straight back up. Now, I put that on Twitter and I felt I got a bit of a sniffy reaction, as if I was being patronising. I didn't mean it like that at all. They could teach the fellas a thing or two, seriously, John, about taking knocks and getting back. Yeah, they could, and there are two other things they could teach them as well. One is discipline, because I hardly ever see a lady player, a woman player, however they like to be called, chattering back to a referee, giving back chat. I'd hardly ever see that. And the other, which I found an astonishing statistic when I first came across it, there have been more headed goals in Women's World Cups than there have in Men's World Cups.
That is amazing.
Now, people would automatically say the men are better headers of a football. I have to say, I think it's partly down to the size of some of the goalkeepers, because they're not the tallest always. There are some good women goalkeepers around, but that is a true statistic. More headed goals by women in the World Cup than men.
Amazing, and that's traditionally been regarded as a weakness of the women's game, hasn't it? The aerial stuff. We'll talk about Sheffield United FC ladies a bit later. Start with the World Cup then, and you're going. Do you detect, I mean, talking England now, do you detect a much more refreshing mood of anticipation?
Yes, before you even finish the question, Gareth Southgate has done tremendously well here, I think. He's on the same level as these players, and I mean that in terms of the age, probably. It's a more modern thing. He's on the same wavelength. He understands Twitter, which I don't, and he understands social media far better. But I think he can talk to the players better than, say, Sam Allardyce could or Roy Hodgson could, because while they are good football managers, there's a massive age gap between them and our best young players who are 28, 29 and 30. So I think I hate it every time when we get built up to, we're going to go and win the World Cup. No, we're not. Well, we probably aren't this time either. But last year I did the Under-17 World Cup finals in India, and I have never been so encouraged in my life. They were a lovely set of lads. They won the tournament. We won the Under-20s in Korea as well. And what Gareth Southgate has produced now is this DNR, which is running throughout every team that England produces between Under-15 and Under-22 or 23 almost now. And I think he deserves great credit for that. And I am very optimistic about the future.
Yeah, we're optimistic without being optimistic in the sense, we're going to go and win.
No, that's what I said. I don't think we will.
And that is almost part of it, isn't it? The acceptance that, OK, we'll do well to get to the quarterfinals. People aren't going to hang the team and hang the manager.
No.
If we don't get to the semis or something.
No, and
at least you hope not.
I think he's brighter as well in the ways that he'll handle the players in the build-up. I mean, you can imagine in South Africa, a lot of players got very, very bored indeed when they were out where they were near Rustenburg. Nothing to do, absolutely nothing. Well, footballers do get easily bored, with all due respect to them. And I don't think he will make that mistake. Because he's on the same wavelength, as I said. And
treating them like adults and expecting them to have a little bit of let your hair down time within reason, Liz. You know, that strikes me as being a much more realistic approach than confined to barracks and boredom for hour upon hour. Yeah,
I mean, it certainly sounds like 2010, there was a serious problem there, that they were really isolated, weren't they? And I mean, I think they had wonderful facilities, didn't they? But there was nothing, it wasn't...
Nothing.
There was nothing there.
No, there was a safari park somewhere quite near, nothing else, you know, a snooker table.
Yeah, so I mean, it's also sort of, you know, treating them as there's a little bit of trust in there as well, isn't there? You know, that they are going to be able to look after themselves.
It's a younger team, and trying to play this term good football. I don't know what good football is really. I mean, you could argue in '66 in the World Cup, England didn't play what you would call the silkiest football, did they? I mean, you and I I'm just about old enough to remember that. wasn't a classic football team, but it was effective, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't know what good football is, but this, to me, the aim is to have a go. The aim isn't to contain the opposition and scrape a couple of draws and get through the group that way, is it?
No, I was so disheartened last time around when we played Costa Rica. We drew 0-0, and Costa Rica really wanted it, and they played with a passion, and they were getting paid a fraction of what our players get paid in the Premier League. I think that's one of the problems, that they get paid so much money in Premier League clubs that they're not as interested when they put on the England shirt. But I think you're right. I think we will try and play a more vital, a more attractive style than we have done in the past. I'm going to see them play Nigeria and Costa Rica shortly, the two build-up matches. And as I say, I'm quietly encouraged.
Yeah, and me too. Did you know that, well, Rob Staten, who was on this show last week from BBC Radio Sheffield, isolated a stat when the squad was announced that more than a quarter of it was from Yorkshire.
Wow.
Born in Yorkshire. I mean, you can go to Gary Cahill, Harry Maguire, Jamie Vardy, Danny Rose, John Stones and Kyle Walker.
Come on, Yorkshire.
Yes.
Well, we did well in the last Olympics. Didn't Yorkshire finish above South Africa?
I think...
Well, Team England did very well in the Commonwealths as well, didn't they? Yeah. But yeah, Yorkshire finished way up, didn't it?
Way up the table, yeah.
I mean, this is great, and we've got Tunisia, Panama, and Belgium. You know, it's that traditional two games that we should win, and the other one, well, you know, a draw will be a good result, possibly. Well,
the only thing I would remind people about there is in 1978, my first World Cup, I was with Scotland, and Ali MacLeod said, we are going to bring back the World Cup. They lost to Peru, drew with Iran, so you could equate that with Panama and Tunisia, and then went and beat Holland. So maybe we're going to beat Belgium to get through. I hope not. I hope we do well against Panama and Tunisia, obviously. Belgium are a good side. That is a tough game.
Isn't it just? But isn't it incredible that big names like Italy and Holland are... Isn't it amazing?
And Chile. Chile. People forget that Chile are not there, and yet they won the Copa America only 2 years ago. And the year before, they won it 2 in a row. Very good South American side. So that, for me, that's Holland, as you say. And Italy, well, you can't imagine a World Cup without Italy. It's never happened in my lifetime.
No, certainly not mine then either. We'll talk specifically about John's role in the World Cup with FIFA and what that entails a little bit later, and also John Motson. I mean, you've seen off Motti. I mean, he's going to carry on working, isn't he?
He's actually younger than me.
Yeah, I know he's younger than you.
Much younger than me, actually.
I wasn't going to mention that.
I don't mind. Yeah, well, I've had some great times with Motti, really. He's always helpful to me, and I like to think I was helpful to him. In fact, I did his last... He's grown out of love of travel, so he didn't want to be going abroad much, and most of the games he's done recently have been in the London area where he lives, and so I do understand he's got fed up of all that side of the business. But I remember his last European Championship final, and he was so nervous and so tense before it, and you think, wow, after all these years, Motti's still... But he was right, he was tensed up and he wanted it to be right, and I was able to give him some team changes that I knew about through FIFA sources before he got them. So I was able to help him on that occasion, and I'm glad I was.
It's interesting, isn't it, that somebody that's been through the mill and is such a hardened professional can still get uptight and nervous.
Yeah, do you agree? We should do. We should be tight and tense before. But if you're too relaxed, then you probably won't do a good job.
Well, I think if you're too relaxed, you maybe wouldn't absorb things. You get distracted. You know, it's always better. Yeah.
Well, they also fail to prepare to fail.
Absolutely. I remember doing a training session once with Sheffield Wednesday when Howard Wilkinson was manager, and he rounded on me before we started and quoted that and said, I'm going to ask you for that saying later, remember it. And it's absolutely true, and it stuck with me.
Yeah, tough taskmaster.
All the time. Yeah, absolutely. Fail to prepare to fail, and also what we're going to talk to Liz about, swimming in Lake Windermere, coming up for charity, rather you than me, because it's 2 miles.
I heard you volunteered.
You heard wrong. That's a rumour I can emphatically deny and exclusively deny.
We volunteered him. If the
weather's like it is today, then I might give it a thought for about 0.5 of a second. The local football scene. Liz and I quite often go to Sheffield United, as you do, and I think we're absolutely delighted that we can park off the subject of the manager's future once and for all. We've talked about it here incessantly.
Yeah, I'm just glad it was sorted as quickly you know, as it was, you know, or, well, not as quickly as it was, because I think the actual issues have been there for a while. But, you know, since, you know, it's become so public, I'm just glad that, as you say, put it behind them and now, you know, allow Chris Wilder to do, you know, to recruit and do what he's very good at.
Common sense.
I would say you put him up there alongside Sean Dyche and Eddie Howe as the best young English manager.
There you go.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously, what's he done? He's done Oxford, Northampton.
Come right from there to there.
Absolutely brilliant. And what a great first season up in the Championship again. He's led them to it. It's down to Chris, there's no question about that.
And he's also, behind the scenes, he's almost banged heads together in the boardroom, heads that weren't speaking to each other, that he's got together because he wanted a sense of direction in the football club. And credit to them, they've done that. And they've managed to park off their differences for long enough to do that. Rotherham United, Sheffield Wednesday, it's all quiet there, which I think is a good sign in a way. They've had 2 or 3 summers where it's been talk of big signings and wild transfer rumours. They've got the nucleus of a good squad there. And
they've had a curious season, haven't they, really? Highs and lows, 4-0s and, you know, losings and winnings, and, you know, a cup run, and then it was halted by Swansea, of course. But, you know, there is optimism. There's no doubt there is still optimism there. And they've finished probably where they deserve to finish in the league table. Yeah,
and they'd expect to be a lot higher, but a lot of players were injured and they came back and to good effect. Rotherham United at Wembley this weekend. It's Wembley I know it's the 2nd time in 4 years and the 3rd time in 6 or something like that. Great to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I was there when they beat Leyton Orient with that dramatic late winner, you know. Certain Mr. Evans went racing along the touchline, showing off his shape, his lovely physique. But to be back there again is extraordinary, because I think we'd all agree that Rotherham is not a big club in that sense. It lives in the shadow of 2 Sheffield clubs which are regarded as giants comparatively. And you wouldn't have given a prayer for them early season, but I love Paul Warne. I think he's terrific. When he comes into a press conference afterwards, he's one of the few managers who says it as it is. And he actually he won't criticise individual players, but he'll talk to us privately afterwards and say, well, he were rubbish today, wasn't he? What on earth was he doing? You know, but we didn't deserve to win that game. The following week, they go away and win, and the same players are brilliant, and he gives them all the credit for it. So I think he's terrific.
He's real and very entertaining to talk to as well. He's been in here, and that was a fascinating... I tell you what, he came in here during the Beast from the East, and there was snow piled up outside, and I was worried that my guest might not, because it'd be the easiest thing in the world living out in Tickhill as he does, to say, I'm sorry, I can't make it, I'm snowed in. And his reaction was, when I checked it, why wouldn't I? I've said I'll be there, I'll be there.
Yeah, good man.
And that tells you an awful lot about him. The winner of the game against, well, the Shrewsbury game, Paul Hurst is at the centre of some intrigue. Another manager, and former Rotherham player like Paul Warne, has done a terrific job. And you wonder, I mean, clubs without a manager at the moment would include Barnsley, would include Bradford City. There must be clubs like that. You'd imagine, if you're doing the job properly in the boardroom, that you'd probably have an eye on that result and say, can we get Paul Hurst, wouldn't you?
Well, you would. Then would probably come down to Paul and what he wants to do domestically, where they want
if to live. If they lose the game, I mean, to Rotherham, if they go to the Championship, you think
then there's no point. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But I think people often lose the sight of the fact that there are domestic issues, you know. And if Lee Johnson was a classic. He came to Barnsley, his roots were down in Bristol. So when the offer of a job in Bristol came up, it was right for him to take it. You understood that from his own family perspective. Now, Paul's a northern boy, isn't he?
He is.
I know he went to Grimsby, which is still very north, and did a good job there as well.
Sheffield Wednesday supporter.
And I've been delighted for Shrewsbury in a way, because Blackburn had money, Wigan had money, but they've kept pace with them all season. And again, as I've just said, the Rotherham success story is down to Paul Warne. As the Sheffield United one is down to Chris Wilder, so Shrewsbury is down to Paul Hurst. And there's another good young English manager. A lot of good young English managers who years ago would have got their chances higher up. Never going to be Premier League managers.
They have to do it the hard way. They virtually have to do what Dyche has done, is move up with Burnley. Chris Wilder's hoping to move up with Sheffield United.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's the only one. Eddie Howe has had to move up with Bournemouth. People haven't spotted him and said, oh, you know.
Well, he had a short spell at Burnley, didn't he? But then it didn't work out quite.
No, it didn't.
I think that was a domestic thing. You know, moving from the south coast with his family up to Lancashire, it didn't work. And back he went, and he's worked out tremendously for him.
OK, well, nearly the end of part one. So thoughts to come on the Barnsley vacancy, the Bradford City vacancy, a little bit on Sheffield United, you name it, Liz Byrnes has got it. We'll talk about Sheffield United ladies. That can be interpreted too many different ways, and I'm not going to prolong that particular conversation. And John Helm will consult the railway timetable during this 5-minute break.
I think they guessed it was me.
Yeah.
I'm on.
Yeah, do rejoin us in about 5 minutes. Plenty more chat where that came from. See you then.